Hi everyone and welcome to Power Popping. I'm Allison Cope and today I'm your hostess for Inspire Me Monday. We are going to work with some digital images today and let's get started. So we're going to use our beautiful sunflower image and we're going to show you how to create a spinner card using a digital image. So me personally, I use Adobe Photoshop CS3. It's an old version. You can basically do the same thing on your computer at home. So I'm just going to create an 8.5 by 11 sheet. I like to work on sheets that are actual print size for me. Not everybody does this. This is just my particular way of working with things. So I've got up my 8.5 by 11 sheet here. I'm just going to make it full size just to make it a little easier to work with. We're going to pull our sunflower power image over to use. Now, because I want this to be a smaller version, we're going to downsize it. And I don't want my image huge because I don't want it to create this huge hole in the front of my card. So we're going to downsize it quite a bit here until I think that's the size I would like it. And that's fairly petite, and that's alright. Now, with a spinner card, because your spinning image, you see the front and the back, this image doesn't have a back, but that's not to say we can't create one. So first of all, we're going to duplicate our layer. I'm not going to rename it, I don't really need to do that. Now, because our spinner rotates, we need a completely opposite version to go on the back, because when you flip this image, it's not the same direction. So we're going to go to our transform tool and we're going to flip it horizontally. So now we have mirror images down this line here, so that when we create it, it will flip and it will have two sides. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to merge all my layers or flatten my image. I'm going to save it and then we're going to print it. And on with the show.
Hi guys, now that we have created our mirror images, we're going to give them a color. I'm not going to bore you with details. I'm going to put on some music and I'm going to speed through coloring. I'll have up all the Copic marker information for you on the screen. Alright, and away we go. So I'm going to color up the remainder of my sunflower here and my other image. I may add a little bit more yellow in with a Y08 and just to brighten it just up, just a touch, and then we'll go on to creating our card. Alright, I've got both of my images all colored up and we're going to use some Stick It because this is going to make my job easier. And what Stick It is, it's basically a really thin adhesive, and it comes with a side on each of it, the adhesive. So you just peel back a piece here and you apply whatever you want adhesive to. right over top. You have to be very careful. And I've just kind of cut this one down to a little bit here. And what that is going to allow me to do is going to make this sticky. And I'm just going to take my scissors now and kind of just cut this out. I am going to go in and fussy cut this, and I think I'm going to leave some of the white parts in here just to make my life a little bit easier when gluing things together, and that will allow me to then adhere it to the back of this one once this one is fussy cut. So I'm going to fussy cut this one first, and I won't bother showing you, but I'll show you how I'm going to put them together. Okay? Okay, I've fussy cut both out. This one happens to have the stick it release paper. I have a doubled up piece of just regular thread. I can't find my fishing line or anything like that, so I'm just going to use that in order to make it extra strong. I doubled it up. So we're going to peel the backing off of our stick it version. Now that I've got this peeled off, I'm just going to set that aside for a second. And we're going to put our string. Actually, I need the sticky side. So we'll put our string kind of like so. And then we're going to put our other version over top. Not necessarily going to be an exact match, but it's going to be pretty darn close, and then I can go in and trim it. Now I've got some boo-boos like this one here where I had one of my markers bloobed on me, so I'm going to go in and fix that with either a white gel pen or my blender pen and see if I can get rid of some of the ink there. But there we go. We've got our spinner aspect all ready to go. Add a little breeze. And it already spins. Pretty cool. Okay, on to finishing up the card. Okay, so I have my 110-pound white card base all ready to go. I've made it a side folding card because the spinners actually, I think, work a little bit better when it's a side fold versus a top folding card, especially if you put your opening towards the top. So I've got a side fold. I've got some fun pattern paper that I'm going to put right directly over top my white cardstock. And I created a panel here using some distress inks and blended it and sprinkled it with some water. I'll list those in my supplies. And we've got our spinner element, and we want to put it about somewhere towards the top of our card. And we've got to find a hole where this piece is going to fit properly and not be too big and not be too small. So that's a little bit too close. And that's a little bit large, so I'm going to go and check out my other circle dies and see if I can find something just slightly smaller. Let's see, what have we got here? Nope. This one looks pretty good. So we just want to make sure that the edges of our spinner aren't going to get caught on anything. So that's the circle I am going to use. Now, because our spinner has to be open, it has to go through all of these pieces of paper, including the card base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily tack everything down. And then I'm going to open up my card base. And I'm going to put my die on where I want it. Secure it in place and then send it through my machine to cut it out. So it'll cut through this, and my card base. So I will actually have a hole right in the front. So I'm going to tack those down, send it through my machine, and we'll go on with the next step. Okay, Okay, so I've temporarily tacked them all to my card base. It's nice and open, and I'm going to send it through my Big Shot. Okay, it took a couple of passes, but that's okay. We have our hole cut out, and now we need to attach our spinner in the hole. So this is where you have to be extra careful. And I'm always scared I'm going to rip all of my hard work. And it's okay if you rip the underside because it's just going to be covered up anyway. So, all right. So, I'm just going to weasel my way in here and just attach this down permanently to the card base because I know it's just going to rip if I attempt to get it to come up. So I'll just pull up my corners because everything else seems to be fairly stuck down. There we go. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this to the back of this panel. We're going to center it and make sure that we're not touching any of the edges. Now you can use Scotch tape, you can use really strong adhesive. I'm actually going to use Scotch tape just because I know it'll help secure it down, and it's a little bit stronger than some of the adhesives I have. So it'll take the abuse of the spinning. So let's just, move this out of the way. Got to make that string as straight up and down as we can get it. And I'm going to take my tape and secure it. Like so. Pulling it taut. And to secure it extra well, I'm just going to bend it back up again. And kind of just secure it a little bit more at the top and the bottom. Because then we'll just trim off. Take our scissors and just be careful. Trim it off behind so it's not sticking out. There we go. And then I can use my strong adhesive to put everything back together. And the beauty of this is basically all you have to do is match up those circles. Just make sure you get your adhesive around that opening as well. Up to the edges as best you can. There we go. Make sure this is really adhered. Here's our card front. So we just have to match up our hole and make sure that all of our sides are where we want it. And we don't have any waves or bubbles. There we go. So there is the premise behind spinner card. And the fun thing about it is just add a little breeze. And she goes. And to put it in your card, what you're going to do, right before you put it in your envelope, you're going to just wind your, your mechanism up a few times. Put some tension on that string. And you're going to close it and shove it in that envelope. And then when the recipient pulls it out, it's going to spin. So don't forget to also decorate the inside. Now the beauty of having your cutout is that you can actually adhere it back in and put a pretty little sentiment on the inside. And that way kind of makes it cool. You could offset it like this, where the light blue should be more towards the bottom, but that's okay. And then put a sentiment in. How fun would that be? Now, this is the digital way to do it, and I have a couple more examples here for you. So I've got our Santa Claus snow globe here. And I've used some clear stamps to decorate my background. And for this one, I did the same thing where I created one shape and I created a duplicate, a mirror image. So if you look, Santa's on one side and then the other. Now, this particular stamp happens to be a really good example because it's actually symmetrical on both sides. And there's nothing hanging out. It's basically a circle with a rectangle at the bottom, and there's no real side, so you could technically just duplicate the size instead of making a mirror image of it. But that's probably the only one we have that is a beautiful shape like that, and you wouldn't have to fussy around with it, but makes for fun interactive cards. Lots of glitter on this one. And if you don't want to do a cutout version and you think that's too hard, that's okay, because there's another version as well. For my third example here, this one is really, really simple. I've done the same thing and cut out my circle. But this one is a circle spinner instead of having that shape. And this one's really easy. You could make it a square or an oval or whatever your dies are. So super easy to make one like this. And then you could stamp anything, any shape, a greeting, another detail of the stamp, just like my little butterfly here. This one I used kind of a tone on tone, and then I used some Finetec metallic watercolors. So it's actually quite sparkly, and I stamped the inside with the exact same image and then put a sentiment behind my circle. So there's another way to make making these cards a lot easier. Is just cut out a shape and then stamp whatever you want on it. So this one says bloom wildly on your birthday. So the next time you go to make a card, don't forget about making something fun, like a fun spinner card to send out. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you've learned something, and join us again next Monday for another great tutorial. Thanks guys, and have a great day.